Monday, 29th May this year, President Bola Tinubu in his inaugural speech said Nigeria's fuel subsidy will be scrapped. This announcement marked the end of almost 50 years of subsidy dating from the 1970s. On June 12th this year, the president called the removal of fuel subsidy a necessary sacrifice and promised that the government will repay Nigerians through massive investment in transportation, infrastructure, education, regular power supply, health care, and other public utilities.
The fresh subsidy is gone.
I have asked you, my compatriots, to sacrifice a little more for the survival of our country.
On 12 July this year, the president requested the passage of the 500 billion naira from the supplementary budget for subsidy palliatives, and the House of Representatives granted speedy approval on 14th July. They amended the 2023 Supplementary Appropriations Act to accommodate the president's request. Remember, a fuel subsidy is a measure taken by the government to lower the price of gasoline or diesel for the general public. It entails offering monetary aid or incentives to make up for prices of fuel products such as gasoline, diesel, or LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. The Collins Advanced Learners Dictionary says, palliative is an action that is intended to make the effect of a problem less severe, but does not actually solve the problem. In light of this, President Bola Tinubu has revealed that his administration will share 8,000 naira each to 12 million vulnerable households to cushion the negative effect of the federal government's recent removal of fuel subsidy. The 500 billion naira will be given as palliatives in the form of conditional cash transfers directly to the bank accounts of the 12 million households. Spectrum Television took to the street to interact with citizens on the effect of the palliative on poor and vulnerable citizens. Recently, the President, Bola Tinubu, wrote to the House of Representatives to approve a 500 billion naira loan to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal. This is what some persons refer to as subsidy palliative. Well, we are in the streets of Uyo, the Akwa Ibom state capital, to find out from citizens how this subsidy palliative will affect them. Will it reach out to the poorest poor? Will it be good for a common man? What are the effects?
I'm not in support of the opinion that they should give out palliative, because the reason is that when they bring palliative into Nigeria, it does not circulate into different homes. Just few people benefited from it. Then another thing, in this current situation that we are now in this country, I don't see the need. We don't see the need in this country for us to say let the government give out palliative.
The government, in my own opinion, don't really say the people's mind. They say their mind. Just wake up one day and make one drastic decision like that. Okay, imagine when Buhari came into power, he said he's going to make things cheap, do this, do that, giving false promises to the media and the people, confusing them. They don't even lead the people to a very good place, and likely telling the people they will change the money to coin. But now we are still using the same naira note, and now they are telling us that they are getting 5 billion. This 5 billion, where are they taking them to? Who and where? Which point is this money being circulated to, so that it will help the people? The people really need help. I don't know for them. At times they used to make me feel Nigeria is not my country. I made a mistake coming, because they say what they don't want to do, and they keep promising, knowing that the people will support them, and after supporting them, they do another thing entirely. They don't stick to the people. And I really think that without 5 billion of a thing, if it so pleases him, because to me, I don't think that money will make any difference. The only thing is that we've heard they are getting 5 billion, but in the end of it, you hear this 5 billion has been squandered. Another money will be requested.
You know, anything in Nigeria is all about politics. So, channeling the money to palliative, some poor homes will not be the beneficiary of those palliatives. So, I think we should channel the money and repair our refinery so that at least everyone will benefit here in Nigeria.
Ever since I was born in this Nigeria as a country, I've never heard anything like palliative that has gotten to a common man. Me, I've never benefited from palliative. Even the lowest as the corona palliative, I did not see. How much more this fuel subsidy palliative that they want to do?
My problem is they should solve this problem because it affects everybody. Fuel now is 500 and something, and then it affects workers. They don't increase their salary, but they are increasing fuel. How would they pay to work, pay their fee, transport to work? And now a single drop is 100 naira. Some places are 200. And so to and fro is difficult. So I am begging them, either they can do something to fix it, not for them to put money in any palliative that will not benefit the masses. Few people will chop the palliative, because last one I did not even see it, talk less of eating it.
I believe it's not a step in the right direction because right from the onset, the government have not been spending their money wisely. The money should have been taken should be taken for maybe for the vulnerables, for people that are not good, don't have physical cash. Also, they should have constituted a program such as the End Power and the other program that could have helped and cushioned the effect of the fuel subsidy. But this palliative is just a thing of the bourgeoisie class, the rich class, and taking the money for themselves. So I don't buy the idea of the palliative, because I believe it's still a scam by the government on running a fuel subsidy.
The president had earlier told a group of former governors at Aso Villa, "I understand that our people are suffering, yet there can be no childbirth without pain." Citizens therefore advised the government on some ideas they could channel the 500 billion naira to instead of the proposed fuel subsidy palliative.
We need the government to use that fund. Understand? We need the government to use that fund to repair our refineries, to make sure our refineries come to life. So that I think through that, the economy will set back. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So they should better do something that will benefit the people than getting money. Money will not solve the problem. That's it. Okay.
I don't think I support 500 billion, right, be circulated for palliative. I think they should channel the money to our refinery so that it will benefit us.
Please, if they want to do anything and they want people to benefit, they should put it into something else like agriculture, education, especially. Like me, that I'm a student. Before you know now, they'll do strike. Before you know, they'll say, go home and sit down. Then they want to do palliative. That palliative, they already have a list of people that they want to write there, and they've written down their names and they want to share the money to. It's just they cover up for their underground works. So please, I don't agree to it.
I think, in my own opinion, they will use the money to fix problems in either refinery or in any way we have problem in fuel. Not in anything like palliative, because we will just eat and it will finish. That problem will still exist. So for my own, I will beg the government to leave the palliative and concentrate on fixing the problem in that fuel. Either if we have a problem in the refinery, they fix it, remove those things that are bad. They fix the new thing, use that money to fix those things, and before we know it, this fuel will come down so that we all will benefit at the end. Not to do things that will still affect us, even our generation, even the one unborn. So that is my own opinion.
Then my advice is to the government that they will come up with a program that can help the people that are not employed. Because if you check the rate at which employment opportunity in Nigeria, we are below par. So it constitutes the one that will help most of the graduates that are out of work and people that are out of work, just like the End Power and everything that can help cushion the fare. But coming out with a palliative, and this palliative that they said is 8,000 naira per homes. 8,000 naira per. What can 8,000 naira do? 8,000 naira cannot help anybody. So with such, it's not the right step in the right direction.
Apparently, The sum of 500 billion naira will be sourced from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819.5 billion naira for the provision of palliatives to Nigerians to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. The impact is great.
Well, we've heard from the citizens. We hope the government listens because the power of the people, they say, is greater than the people in power. I am Blessing Dixon, reporting for Spectrum Television News.
Very good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine. This is Friday and of course we are coming to you live on Spectrum Television, broadcasting on Star Times DTH Channel 421. I mean, a lot of people will always celebrate Friday morning because it is the last day, in the week that we get to wake up early and get to work. For some people or for most people, but for others who have their work from Monday through Sunday, definitely is no reason to be thankful. But then, regardless of how the scenario plays out for you, we always have a reason to say yes, we're gradually coming to the end of a week, and of course the beginning of the new one is lying awaiting and in wait for us. My name is Francis Oyema Edet, and I'm delighted to welcome you on board today's Rise and Shine. Of course, we'll encourage you to always join the conversations on our social media platform, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Should be on your screen so you can join the conversations and let us know exactly how you feel. There are a lot of issues of concerns, issues of urgent public importance, issues of communal value that I know Nigerians, you are eager to also make your contributions on. Chiefest of that being the fuel subsidy removal and all the issues surrounding it. As of this morning, we've been told that, many depots have been left vacant as the landing cost for fuel has risen to about 720 naira. And what that means is the possibility of fuel increasing from, the 600 and something naira currently being purchased in some locations to more than about 800, almost 900 that was projected about a month back when, the fuel subsidy saga, kick-started. Shortly after the May 29 speech of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. And of course, Nigerians are still feeling the burden, the attendant effect of that ill-taken decision, which has been described by many economists and, of course, technocrats and policy analysts in Nigeria as being ill-taken by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. While the generality of Nigerians had believed that fuel subsidy was a scam and was applauded by the elite of the elites, as described by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, to take Nigerians for granted, of course, put the wealth of the nations in the pockets of a few. Many have said the decision to remove fuel subsidy should have taken a lot more time, and Nigerians should have been given, the luxury, or should we say the courtesy of transitioning gradually into the end of the fuel subsidy regime. But of course, it is what it is, and President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has restated his commitment consistently that he's not going back on the fuel subsidy, even though with the recent twists and turns in the event within the petroleum sector, seems the federal government is still one way or the other subsidizing or fuel for Nigerians because of the disparity between the naira and the dollar. But landing cost at 720 naira spells doom for the Yuletide season that is just around the corner. Don't forget we're in October. Of course, that's why we had to start today's Rise and Shine with the narrative around the fuel subsidy and what Nigerians think. The phone number is on your screen. We'd like to get to hear from you this morning. But of course, kickstarting our conversation on our very first flash news, as far as insecurity is concerned, we have seen it take different forms across the different geopolitical zones, across the different states of the Federation. And most recently this week, on the top of your agenda and the front burner for conversation happens to be the issue of the young lady who reportedly died as a result of negligence and rejection on the part of hospital management in Abuja. And of course, the activities of criminal element touted as one chance, armed robbers who allegedly robbed her and of course threw her out of a moving vehicle. Luckily for her, she was found by Nigerians who rushed her to her hospital, but unfortunately, the unprofessionalism and lack of courtesy and of course respect for human life came into play again when the hospital rejected to acknowledge and admit the lady for treatment, which led to her untimely demise. Of course, that issue has generated a lot of reaction, and we see that worried by the worsening insecurity in the country, the Senate yesterday resolved to summon the service chief, of course, also summoning the minister of the FCT. Now, the senator summoned the Inspector General of Police, Kaide Gbetekun, and the Minister of Health and FCT, Ali Pate and Yesam Wike, respectively, over the demise of Ms. Greatness Oluru Femi at the Maitama General Hospital as of last Tuesday. Greatness Oluru Femi was a victim of one-chance criminals. They stabbed and threw her out of the vehicle she boarded along the Maitama-Kubwa Highway. Reports say she was immediately rushed to the Maitama General Hospital by Good Samaritans, but the facility did not attend to her for not providing a police report. Disturbed by the said development, the Senate, through its motion sponsored by Senator Sukwa Ekpenyang, is instructing its Committee on Health and Police to carry out a thorough investigation on Olurufemi's death and report back in 2 weeks' time. Now, we also saw as a spiral out effect of these that the Inspector General of Police, through the police spokesperson, had said in the FCT, long before now, the Nigerian Police Force had issued a directive and had made it crystal clear that medical facilities are mandated to treat people brought in under emergency situation, whether with gunshot wounds or any questionable wounds or incidences that might have occurred. The first thing that the hospitals are expected to do is acknowledge or receive the persons that have been brought in, commence treatment immediately to save the person's life, and of course, immediately on the heels of that, notify the police who will come in and take charge of the situation. Now, in the event that the person who comes in with or who came in with a gunshot wound happens to be a criminal, through the investigation of the Nigerian Police Force, we will be able to know for sure if this person was a criminal. And if the person was a victim of a criminal attack or armed robbery, then also the police, through its investigation, would have been able to, solve the puzzles. But at the end of all of these, Nigerians' life would have been saved. People who should have died because of fear or negligence on the part of these medical facilities would have been saved. But that spiraled out a lot of conversations across Nigeria. I mean, the social media was awash with different reactions and comments as to what transpired and the inhumanity and the blame going to the medical sector. But of course, things like this, Nigerians would say, will continue to happen on a day-to-day as long as we do not get to the point where Nigerians normalize knowing the right and people in facilities such as the hospital that rejected greatness is being or are being made with stiffer penalties and punishment, facing the full wrath of the law. A situation where Nigerians have to also normalize taking institutions to court and suing them for damages, for negligence, for unprofessionalism and in the line of their duty has also been spoken about widely within the course of the week. And greatness incident is not just one that is in isolation, but one that has happened across the respective states of the Federation. There have been several instances where this kinds of scenario have played out. I recall that severally this conversation has surfaced on the social media, and Nigerians have always taken to the phone lines when we have the privilege of speaking with the representative or the spokespersons of the forces to ask critical questions and seek clarification. Even here, we had the CP, the spokesperson for the Akwa Ibom State Police Command, SP Odiko McDon, reiterating that fact some months back when the incident happened, and we had to find solutions to it. But it raises a lot of questions. Why do we still fee Nigerian medical facilities regardless of the directive coming from the security agencies, going against professional conduct, going against the oath they swore to prioritize saving of human lives? That's a question that has left Nigerians puzzled, and that's the question the Nigerians seek to answer. And how Nigerians seek to answer that is to normalize, holding people accountable, making sure that people whose act of negligence, whose act of unprofessionalism has caused or led to the life of another being wasted are punished as a deterrent for others to follow suit. But of course, according to the motion moved by Senator Sukwa, 2 weeks is been given to the committee to do thorough findings and investigation and those report back to the House for further legislative actions. And Nigerians expect that the 10th National Assembly will be able to get to the root of these and thus be able to put an end to the problems that has bedeviled Nigeria, among other things. But chiefest of all the demands made by Nigerian is that there should be a piece of legislation making it constitutional for medical facilities to ensure that when people are brought in under emergency situations, they are given top priorities, like we've seen in Senate climbs. I mean, literally, accident emergencies, victims of fire incidents, gunshot, victims when rushed into the hospital receive immediate medical attention. The first priority is to save the life, and when that is done, probably before you wake up from the effect of whatever drug has been given to you to help you sleep while whatever operation is being done on you is going on, the police are right beside you asking questions as soon as you're strong enough to understand what exactly transpired and led to the condition with which you were brought into the medical facility. But of course, we need to get to that point in Nigeria where all of these professional conduct are being strictly adhered to. And what more could help Nigeria remedy such scenario rather than a piece of legislation that should also be made visible to all Nigerians through, great massive awareness and also the implementation of it thereof. But we also see, as a result of the insecurity, spreading out across the nation, the upper chamber has taken a decision as of yesterday after deliberating on a motion of the kidnapped 5 female students from the Federal University, Dashima in Katsina State on Wednesday. Now, those to be summoned include the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Torid Lakpaja, Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, and Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Azan Abubakar. We also saw that the Inspector General of Police Olukayode Gbetekun and the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, the lawmakers asked the security agencies to be more proactive and ensure the rescue of the abducted female students as well as the core members kidnapped by terrorists in Zamfara State. Now, speaking further, they urged the military to conduct special operations to dislodge bandits in the northwest and in other parts of the country, and also called on the federal government to address the manpower deficit in the armed forces and the police. The senators also emphasized the need for the creation of state police as one of the solutions to the security challenges in the country. Of course, the day has not been fixed for the meeting with the plant chief, and we'll bring you up to date with that information as soon as we have it. But of course, this is a move that Nigerians again have also commended, Recall that when the new service chief all took over the helms of affairs in the respective armed forces of Nigeria, they all started off by talking tough. They all started off by, promising transformation, promising to curb the spread of insecurity, promising to, cut the tides of criminal activities in Nigeria. I recall the likes of the Acting Inspector General of Police, Egbetekun, was always talking tough. And one of the statements he made was that he feels like literally, putting an end to criminal activities in Nigeria. But of course, he also promised Nigerians that, Nigerian policing or police in Nigeria will be in line with international best practices when it comes to policing. He also vowed to bring in a lot of technological advancement and innovation in the process of, ensuring security of lives and properties in Nigeria. But going by the trend of things, Nigerians are asking question, when do we get to see the implementation? I mean, if, criminal elements can have a field day in the FCT, the nation's capital, to rob people, to kill, to maim, and go scot-free, imagine what would happen in other states. That's the Federal Capital Territory, and it raises a whole lot of concerns for Nigerians. For those who have visited Abuja in recent days, it seems like the spate of criminal activities is consistently on the increase, and that poses another big question. What are the security agencies? What are the men at the helms of affairs doing? And of course, we know there have also been those conversations about, deficiencies in terms of the manpower that we have across board as not being sufficient. Literally speaking with a police spokesperson, I will tell you, yes, the Nigerian police can't be everywhere because we do not have enough personnel to handle that kind of responsibility, which means there is need for massive recruitment into the Nigerian armed forces. Of course, also, recall sometime last year within the administration of the just concluded era of the then President Muhammadu Buhari, the issue of state police was consistently on the front burner, with some state in support and other state governors not in support. Of course, we saw some of the reasons being posited by state governors and some being posited by the federal government. But it's a new twist of event, as the 10th Senate is saying we should look into the issue of having state police as an alternative and as a way of further, taking the battle of insecurity, taking the battle of fighting criminality in our society to the next level. How that is going to span out is a thing that we keep on monitoring the story as it develops. But of course, moving away from that flash news, we need to the next one that has been a very serious controversy in Nigeria. But just before then, we know that as a spread out of the insecurity in Nigeria, Benue State has been one hotbed that has witnessed a lot of killing. We also saw that within the course of plenary yesterday, the senators urged the federal government to resettle over 1.5 million Benue residents displaced by bandits. Now, it also asked the Apex government to redeem the 10 billion naira promise made to the people of Benue to rebuild the destroyed communities. The Senate resolution was sequel to the adoption of a motion at plenary yesterday on the need to resettle displaced people of Gweri West, Makodi, and Guma local government area to the ancestral homes and avert imminent humanitarian crisis in the state. That was sponsored by Senator Zam Tatega, APC, Benue. Now, Tatega, in his lead debate, recalled that farmers of Gwa West, Makodi, and Guma local government area of Benue State have been sacked and displaced by bandits masquerading as herders in the last 7 years. He said these had resulted in the people taking aboard at camps under deplorable and excruciating conditions at Naka Agabwe, Alagan North Bank, of course, Omar and Gajagba in Gwa West, Makodi, and Guma local government areas, respectively. Of course, the continued stay of the people, according to the senator, at the camps potentially exposes them to a humanitarian crisis, an outbreak of diseases, and other health challenges. The senator therefore urged resettlement of 1.5 million Benue IDPs, kidnapped Benue commissioner rescued. Of course, he commended the rescuing of the kidnapped Benue commissioner. As a result of that, we saw the different activities coming from the National Assembly, which of course is all geared towards ensuring that security and the security challenges across, particularly within the north, the southeast, geopolitical zones are being addressed holistically to try and put an end to the challenges bedeviling the nation. But moving away from that, yesterday, the conversation around the certificate saga of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu took a new turn when we saw the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party and former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, holding a press conference to brief Nigerians on his findings as far as the CSU and President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's certificate issue is concerned. We'll just take a pause of the comment coming from Atiku's speech as at yesterday, and then we'll return to dwell on this conversation.
Of elective government in our country. Today, we are called upon to again, as a people, to uphold and defend the ground rules of elective government in our country. The Constitution prescribes the requirements for those who seek the highest elective office in the land. It should not take months or indeed decades for the institutions concerned to be able to do their work in establishing the credibility of any certificates presented by candidates for public office.
Of course, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, there addressing Nigerians on the findings on the CSU bordering on the certificate of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. But we see the lawyer to Atiku Abubakar says President Bola Tinubu's academic document released by the Chicago State University CSU indicated many things about the Nigerian leader. Of course, he spoke yesterday during the press conference held by his principal, the presidential candidate of the PDP, the 2023 election in Abuja. Now, Atiku had asked CSU to release the documents over suspicions that Tinubu forged his credentials from the school. Of course, during the event, Kalu claimed the documents that were handed over to Atiku's team showed several things about Tinubu as captured under the following subtitles. Said, number one, forged certificate. He claimed that Bola Ahmed Tinubu forged the certificate he presented to INEC ahead of February 2023 polls. Number two, female name. That apart from that, Kalu said the document showed that Tinubu's qualifying certificate from Southwest College of Chicago State University bears a female name. These, he noted, showed that qualifying document does not belong to Tinubu. Number three, he said Tinubu's high school graduation date. Not just that, Atiku lawyer also said that the documents from the CSU show that Tinubu attended Government College Lagos and graduated in 1970, when indeed the school was established in 1974. Now, of course, identity theft. He told the gathering that the CSU document showed a black American honor and that in the document Bola Ahmed Tinubu submitted to INEC, Tinubu, denied having dual citizenship, which means it does not belong to him. Now, those are some of the highlights that Kalu, the lawyer to Atiku Abubakar, did say.
And by the grace of God, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Your Excellency, you are welcome, sir.
They're still talking about the controversy surrounding the certificate of the All Progressive Congress, now the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Meanwhile, we see that the All Progressive Congress, APC, has claimed that the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, is suffering from multiple electoral losses over his push for the nullification of President Bola Tinubu's win. Atiku, who lost in the 2023 election, and also to Muhammadu Buhari in the 2019. And on Thursday, being yesterday, addressed a press conference after the Chicago State University released President Tinubu's academic credentials, which he earlier demanded on the suspicion that the Nigerian leader submitted fake documents for the 2023 exercise. Of course, a lot of issues spiraling out from that, and the reactions from the APC. Speaking on, to newsmen, of course, the spokesperson to the APC, Felix Moka, faulted the former vice president's address. Of course, he said that the statement coming from Atiku Abubakar has been tattered and empty drums of lies, distortion, untruths, and sheer falsehood. The APC national publicity is quoted to have also said that this is not an occasion to be emotional, and that he can understand when one loses an election, especially for a man who has serially lost a presidential election. One can understand that he's affected by the serial losses, according to Moka. Of course, according to him, Atiku and his team had filed a suit to stop Tinubu's election on the basis that Tinubu, did not attend CSU, and not a case of forgery as claimed by the PDP candidate. He also stated that the argument is quite contrary to what has been posited by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. But here's an interesting twist that happened this morning, still as a parallel event of the presidential candidate of the PDP's comment. Of course, this morning we see that Atiku Abubakar has said that Ahmed Bola Tinubu betrayed him when he stood by Ahmed Bola Tinubu when he was in Lagos State and prevented the then President Olusegun Obasanjo from taking over Lagos State. And as a part of his expectation, that expected that Atiku Abubakar, Ahmed Bola Tinubu will also support his political aspiration. Now, the interesting twist that Nigerians are reacting to is that it's becoming not just a call on the part of Atiku Abubakar for justice, for fairness, for equity. It seems that this has become some kind of a political vendetta on the part of Atiku Abubakar towards the person of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu as at this point. Because when you look at the narrative, when you look at the body language, when you look at the statement coming out from Atiku Abubakar as at today, you would see the undertone and the essence of why Atiku Abubakar is doing what he's doing. Now let's get to see, we see the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 poll. Atiku Abubakar said he did not betray President Bola Tinubu over the allegation of certificate forgery leveled against him at the court. Now Atiku said the former Lagos State governor abandoned him as well as the Action Congress of Nigeria and supported Umaru Yar'Adua of the PDP in the 2007 presidential poll, adding that he saved Tinubu by not allowing former President Olusegun Obasanjo to take over Lagos State in the 2007 general elections. Now, this is an interesting turn of event coming from the leadership of the People's Democratic Party, the presidential candidate. So it has moved from Atiku Abubakar seeking to nullify the election of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu on grounds that the elections were not conducted in line with extant laws, the electoral laws 2022 and other electoral related laws in Nigeria, to the issue of a political vendetta, some act of betrayal that he perceived President Ahmed Bola Tinubu meted out to him and his party faithful. Now, if we have to piggyback a little bit, down the history, I recall that just during the concluded elections, one of the reasons that had the G5, breaking out from the People's Democratic Party and refusing to support Atiku Abubakar. Of course, the G5 we know was led by Nyesom Wike, now Minister of the FCT, who is of the PDP. Now, Wike had said one of the reasons he felt betrayed by the leadership of the PDP is that the likes of Atiku Abubakar have not been in the party and have not paid their dues to the extent that he has sacrificed. He pointed out clearly that when Atiku and others abandoned the PDP, he himself, Wike, was the one pillar who stood by and kept on building the party and holding the home together. So he felt betrayed when Atiku Abubakar emerged as the flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party after Lawal, submitted and surrendered to him at the 11th hour during the last speech at the venue of the presidential primaries last year, or just, within the course of the just concluded phase of election. Now, when you look at that conversation, you bring it back to what Atiku Abubakar is saying. So, Wike betrayed the PDP and Atiku Abubakar for not supporting him, regardless of the fact that he stood by to build the party. Now, Atiku Abubakar, he's seeking to also betray or to also get some level of justice on the part of Ahmed Bola Tinubu for betraying him sometime way back from 2007. So, the question Nigerians are asking, are we looking at political vendetta being showed off in this guise of actually fighting for right, for justice, for fairness, and for the right mandate of the Nigerian people? Now, another interesting twist is that as of yesterday, Atiku Abubakar had sought the support of the Labour Party presidential candidate, His Excellency Peter Obi, that of the NNPP, talking about Rabiu Kwankwaso, to join hands with him, and indeed, by extension, asking all Nigerians to join hands with him to fight for justice, to seek for justice. Of course, he's also posited that the issue of the certificate forgery of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has not only created a dirty image for Nigerians, but will leave a very serious aftermath effect on Nigerians and, of course, the Nigerian institution. When you look at all of that, of course, yesterday we saw some university had already began the process of rejecting applications from some countries, including Nigeria, citing the issue of fraud in the result obtained by individuals that are sent to these institutions to aid processes of admission and furthering of studies. Of course, on the screens of social media, a lot of conversations have been, gotten all through of this. Still spiraling out from Ahmed Bola Tinubu's certificate issue. We see that some comment came forward as that way back 2007, when a publication was made exposing or allegedly saying that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's, certificate was fake. Of course, we see that within the course of all of these, the Chicago State University has said it does not have the certificate President Bola Ahmed Tinubu presented to the Independent National Electoral Commission. Of course, that was as posited by the VC of the CSU during a comment within the court proceedings. Sometime way back in 1999, according to a publication made by Neme on Twitter, it was said that when late Chief Gani Fahemi exposed official but as a certificate forger in 1999, he was humiliated and his car smashed, and of course the report has it that he died a broken man. Of course, as a result of that, the story posted that the image of Nigerians have been further damaged, and that also has a picture of Tinubu. Of course, Tinubu is not Buhari, according to Adesanya, as the then, and the source says expose how Tinubu forged his certificate, pressuring him to step down. This is way back to 2007, very way back down to when Ahmed Bola Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State. Of course, with all of this, Nigerians have further been reminded that during the era of the outgone President Muhammadu Buhari, we also saw a certificate issue that surfaced when the president's WAEC record came under scrutiny and question rose as a result of that. We saw different certificates of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, one in 2019 and one in 2015, surfacing allegedly online with different discrepancies, being seen in that. Of course, Nigerians have said as a result of President Muhammadu Buhari leading us, the country has been backtracked in terms of growth and development. And in the situation where another certificate-less individual should be allowed to lead Nigeria in the event that this is proven that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's certificate is actually deed forged. Then, of course, it raises a whole lot of questions. First, how will the international community perceive Nigerians and Nigeria as a country? How will a president sit at par with his contemporaries outside the shores of Nigeria? We know there have been some, argument as to the basic qualification that one must have to be able to govern Nigeria. But in this 21st century and the reality of things, knowing that even within government employ, ordinary school set, ordinary WAEC certificates are no longer given the kind of value that they were given in years past, decades past. So if in government employ, we're looking at ND, we're looking at HND, we're looking at BSc, we're looking at PhD to, assign some positions in government to people. How much more the position of the #1 citizen of Federal Republic of Nigeria, which of course many have said that should be the one office that we pay extra attention to the credentials, both academically and of course the track record and experience of the individual entrusted with that responsibility. And particularly at the moment where Nigeria is grappling with a lot of challenges: economic, security, health, power, and other subsectors of the country in dire need of a solution, or rather, should we call it a savior that will turn the tides of things around. Of course, these conversations, still developing, as we know that Atiku Abubakar of the PDP and the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, have appealed the case as far as the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal verdict, which upheld President Ahmed Bola Tinubu as the authentic and the returned president-elect of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We'll love to see as this story develops, but of course, this is where we place a pause on Rise and Shine and head out to the news brief desk, where Mary Joseph is standing by to take us round the world. Of course, latest happening from around the globe. When we do return, we will return with more conversations on Rise and Shine. Do stay with us.
State and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This will be Lagos voting for spectrumtvlive to recover for the lapses in collective counting.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This will be Lagos voting for spectrumtvlive to recover for the lapses in collective counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. We begin the news brief with the reports that the House of Representatives has decided to look into the claim that oil firms have harmed the environment in areas that produce oil and have applied the law government. A proposal made at the plenary by Amadou Jaha of the APC in Borno State. The resolution was passed. Jaha, who represented the motion, claimed that many oil wells in the oil-producing areas have been drained and are no longer economically viable, leading local and multinational oil and gas firms to sell up their previous upstream holdings. Reports say the House charged its Downstream Petroleum Resources Committee to look into any environmental harm brought on by oil firms disregarded for the law. Away from that, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 poll, Atiku Abubakar, has said he did not betray President Bola Tinubu over the allegation of certificate forgery he leveled against him at the courts. Atiku said the former Lagos State governor abandoned him, as well as the Action Congress of Nigeria, and supported Umaru Yar'Adua of the PDP in the 2007 presidential poll, adding that he saved Tinubu by not allowing former President Olusegun Obasanjo to take over Lagos State in the 2007 election. Meanwhile, marketers have said many petroleum products depots are currently deserted due to lack of products caused by foreign exchange rate volatility, as the landing cost of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, has increased to 720 naira per litre, adding that filling stations were shutting down daily in large numbers, and it has become increasingly tough to run the business. They said this could lead to widespread fuel scarcity in the coming months. Speaking at the National Executive Council meeting of the Natural Oil and Gas Suppliers Association of Nigeria in Abuja, the national president, Nogosa Bennett Corey, said a lot of the depots were presently dried up or are out of stock. In Africa, the peace and security bodies of the UN and the African Union AU have been discussing financing of peacekeeping operations carried out under the aegis of the Pan-African Organization on the continent since Thursday in Addis Ababa. The member countries of the UN Security Council UNSC and the AU Peace and Security Council BSC are holding their annual meeting on Thursday and Friday in the Ethiopian capital headquarters of the AU. Opening the proceedings, AU Peace and Security Commissioner Bankole Adeoye called on participants to specifically address the central issue of predictability, adequate, flexible, and sustainable funding for the Continental Organization's peacekeeping operations in Africa. And finally, in sports, Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen has taken himself off penalty-taking duty for Napoli after a now infamous series of TikToks were posted to the club's social media channels in recent weeks. The Nigerian had been left furious after two seemingly insulting videos were posted to the club's TikTok account, one of which had mocked him for begging for a penalty, then his miss from the sport in a Serie A match against Bologna at the end of September. Reports now say that since the incident, Napoli have played 3 matches and been awarded penalties in every one of those games, yet Osimhen has not taken any of them. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine where we have Francis on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
This will be Lagos voting for spectrumtvlive to recover for the lapses in collective counting.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This will be Lagos voting for spectrumtvlive to recover for the lapses in collective counting.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Want to welcome you back at Still Rise and Shine this Friday, and we are grateful and thankful to always have you on the other side. Have you there always with us. As far as we talk Nigeria, taking you around the latest development from the nook and breadth of Nigeria. Of course, we always encourage you to join us on a social media platform, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. The phone lines are up, and we'd like to hear from you your thoughts on the certificate saga between President Ahmed Bola Tinubu and the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and the different twists and turns. Of course, as part of Talking Nigeria this morning, we dealt extensively with, issues and conversations springing up from the saga between Atiku Abubakar and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, bordering on the academic certificates he presented to INEC during the just concluded elections. An interesting twist this morning, we see that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has allegedly given grounds and reasons to which he will be able to drop the case against the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Of course, the issue have been about the discrepancies in the certificate, and we'd like to see how the twists and turns of events will spiral out. We saw that yesterday Atiku held a press conference where he addressed Nigerians on his findings, and of course, his lawyer Kano highlighted four key things that have been made visible by virtue of the certificate that has been released by the CSU to his team. We also see that the Senate has asked the federal government to resettle 1.57 million displaced Benue residents, and of course release a 10 billion naira promise to the state to help rebuild the community that have been ravaged by the activities of bandits and insurgents. We also saw the Senate inviting service chiefs and the Minister of Health, Minister of the FCT over the insecurity and of course the death of a Nigerian who died as a result of one chance in Abuja, and of course the attendant negligence witnessed by the hospital where she was rushed to by Samaritans or Good Samaritans. We also see that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's APC have debunked the speculation and described as a chasing cloud. The move by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party as far as the certificate issue is concerned. These and many more were the issues we've handled this morning, and I will always encourage you to join us. And of course, in case you did miss out, the social media platforms are there as we stream live on spectrumtvlive.ng. But of course, we will be having a conversation this morning. Yesterday, CBN report said the e-naira is a threat to financial stability. Of course, we also saw the issue where the World Bank spoke against the activities in the financial sector and what impact that is having on the Nigerian financial institution. Of course, with the new leadership of the First Bank or the Apex Bank of Nigeria, a lot of concerns have been raised this morning. Our guest this morning on Rise and Shine is a banker and a chartered accountant who will be helping us navigate the different the different financial issues that have been raised by World Bank, and of course the issue of the CBN report and the e-naira. Our guest is Abel Udi. Abel, good morning. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Very well. Seems you're in transit to work or somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. We truly appreciate you could make out the time, so we'll make this quick. So,
It's good.
2 years ago, the then CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele told Nigerians e-naira was the new innovation that will transform the landscape. And we know there were a lot of arguments that happened as at then, but we see a new CBN report saying that the introduction of the e-naira has been a major threat to the Nigerian currency and the issue between the dollar and the naira. I'd like to get to hear your reaction on this, knowing that the Apex Bank as at then had touted the e-naira to be a game changer for the Nigeria's financial institution.
The opportunity. And my take on the CBN e-currency is that the CBN currency was introduced at the time to checkmate the effect of cryptocurrencies in the Nigerian space. You know, at the time, Emefiele was anti-cryptocurrency and introduced the electronic digital currency for Nigeria. However, what the supposed threat is in the fact that the CBN wallets are domiciled at CBN, deposit held at banks. And it is against this deposit held by banks that you can create loans. Now, if we have 100% adoption of electronic digital currencies like the e-naira, that means all your savings, all my savings will be at CBN. Then how do bank create loans when customer deposits are held at CBN? Will CBN have the capacity to create loans? And the more funds leave leave the commercial banks, the ability to create loans reduces. And when you can't create loans, you understand, you can't stimulate businesses because a lot of businesses, they thrive on loans. SMEs, they thrive on loans. That's why when a business when the sector can create loans, there's a slowdown in the economy. So I think the issue with the electronic bank digital currency is mostly operational, where who keeps the bulk of the deposits. That's the sum total of the individual wallet, who keeps it, and also the threat of cybersecurity. You see, when you throw something in there, online, you must actually have the technology to protect people's deposits. And you can see that the adoption rate has been very, very low because Nigeria has a high literacy level, such that even the conventional introduction of cards, mobile application, is just steadily gaining traction with the people. Now, telling people to keep their money in mirror form on a digital wallet hosted by one entity, the CBN, you understand, will be a hard sell. That's why we've had like about 0.2% adoption, in the country. And even at that, you'll be sweeping more monies to the CBN than sweeping money to the banks through which they can create loans and they actually impact the economy. I think that is where the issue of the e-currency having a negative impact on the economy is coming out from.
Okay, now you've talked about the fact that if the banks are not able to generate loan, it's going to affect the economy. Looking at the new CBN report, what would be your assessment of the leadership of the then CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele? Would he say under his leadership, the e-naira policy was in the interest of Nigerians or against?
For policies, there are pros and cons. And at the time, based on what he felt, he felt the e-naira was a novel innovation. Frankly, I believe the e-naira was a good idea. However, the challenge was with the e-naira was the fact that banks should actually keep their deposits. Banks should the blockchain design should be designed in such a way that if I'm carrying my wallet is a GT wallet, the deposits in GT wallet should reflect as part of the deposits for GT, not that the wallet becomes the central wallet that is anchored by CBN. I think that is where the CBN got it wrong. You also must note that for everybody in a position of authority, you understand, people would touchlight your achievements after, and people will amplify the negative aspects of your time in office. For me, the e-naira did not succeed because of the level of education in Nigeria, and also I don't think majority of the banks actually gave it their full support, and because they understand the implication of massive adoption of the digital currency on their loan to deposit ratio. And the loan to deposit ratio, determines the health of a bank. Do you understand? If your loan to deposit ratio is high, that means the bank is unhealthy. A slight default, might stress the bank. So the banks rather want to keep their deposit as against customers adopting the e-naira, because now the money is moving to CBN. So I think it was a policy in the interest of Nigerians to each transaction, to reduce the cost of producing the naira, which oftentimes, the cost of producing maybe 100 naira note is more than the 100 naira, more than the value of the 100 naira itself. So CBN was looking at the way to cut cost, at the same time ease the flow of transaction. Well, on the flip side, if you own all the deposits, you will be killing the economy. So I think there ought to have been a trade-off. Banks, you have your own spot on the blockchain. Keep your deposit, maintain the volume of currency in your vault, on your balance sheet, and create monies through them. I think there's a need to rejig the framework a little, and also get the banks to buy in if they can keep the deposit, and the policy will work.
Okay, so according to what you've just said, there's a possibility of the CBN actually being able to recall back the policy and re-gig the policy, and then that work. Now, in the event that some of the postulations that you've made this morning is adopted by the CBN, will this e-naira be in the interest of growing our economy as a nation?
Yeah, definitely. You need to understand that with the e-naira, there is little or no transaction cost. So if, for instance, Bank A, Bank B, understand that, look, my position on the e-naira is mine, and it's part of my deposit, and I'm not losing money to CBN. And with the Gen Z generation that like to do all their transactions online, and also don't like to take charges. The moment everybody does transaction in naira, it improves the volume of transactions in Nigeria, and that is what Nigeria actually needs. Nigeria needs its people to trade more, earn more money, through tech and other areas, and will grow. And the moment people earn this money, and we can track these incomes, and we can maybe tax them a little, the government will have money to embark on projects. But if you set up a project and the people are not knowledgeable enough about it, a critical sector like the financial sector is looking at the flip side where they lose money and the overall health is challenged, you understand, then there's going to be an issue with this policy. So I would urge the CBN to have a rethink and ensure that, look, banks keep their share of deposits on the blockchain, and which will reflect on their loan to deposit ratios. And with this, we can roll out this e-naira again, get the banks to buy in. And definitely, I'm very, very sure the way Nigerian people adopted cards. So, I remember when I joined banking, cards were being introduced at the time. A lot of people didn't like the idea of cards. But today you can see a young Nigerian can go 3 weeks without having 1,000 naira in his pocket, but he's confident to walk around because he has a card on him. Look at agency banking. Agency banking is a win-win for the central bank, for the banks, for you and I, because I don't have to go and queue at an ATM machine. I could easily walk into a nearby shop and get money. However, if you are coming up with a policy, it must be a win-win for all the critical stakeholders in the project. And in the case of the CBN digital currency, it was a win for the CBN. The people were indifferent, while the major stakeholders, the bankers, it was a loss for them. And that's why we can see that there's a law in the adoption of the e-naira.
Okay, just shortly before we let you go this morning, we also saw that the World Bank has blamed the re-emergence of parallel currency exchange market in Nigeria and resistance towards the increasing pressure on the naira and the limited supply of the forex at the official market. Just this morning, we're told by petroleum marketers that the landing cost for lifting petrol has gotten to about 720 naira. And conversations about the fact that importers are still unable to get the forex or the dollars to transact business and import fuel, as it was announced by the leadership of this present administration. I'd like to hear, to a common man, what would you say is the impact of these activities in the black market? Because we know that Ahmed Bola Tinubu, part of the key policies that he's made so far has been a move to ensure that dollars is made available to importers in the banking hall. But it seems regardless of the move, the banks are still not having enough dollars to give to importers, and people still have to resort to the street. And this seems to be harming still the Nigerian economy.
Well, now, the issue is this. It is one thing to want to provide the USD as a forex to businesses, through the investor and exporter window. It's another thing for the country to have adequate supply to meet the demands of the different sectors of the economy. We need to understand that it is not petroleum importers that require FX every day. We have people in different sectors that require this FX. And the persistent problem we have is that the major FX contributor to Nigeria is oil and gas. And there are multiple entry points of this FX. And over time, we've not actually been attracting, a lot of FX inflow from other sectors like foreign direct investments over time, because Nigeria has not been a key foreign direct investment destination in Africa for some time. So Nigeria has a supply problem. Now, our issue, the solution now is to look at strategies for import substitution to reduce pressure on the naira. My take on this is you can't stop the black market because the black market will source for these funds and it will be demand chasing supply. So people will pay whatever they're willing to pay to get what they need to do to buy FX and do their small business and survive and transfer the cost. They transfer the extra cost to you and I, which also drives up cost in the market. So my take is, look, at a time, we've had a period in time where we had the import prohibition list. Maybe federal government should expand the import prohibition list now. I think we have the import prohibition list and products not valid for FX. We had about 45 products on the not valid for Forex list. Maybe we should increase to 70, increase to 80 to ensure that, look, from the official window, the investor and exporter window, maybe we'll restrict the number of sectors we want to fund. And if we restrict this number of funds, we'll fund critical sectors only, maybe oil and gas, and key inputs into the production sectors. For every other thing, look, let Nigerians make do without it. That way, we can reduce the pressure. And if the pressure is reduced, the black market would maybe sell close to the exchange rate, because even at that, if, for instance, I say the federal government is saying, look, I am not funding the import of stockfish, for instance, from the import and exporter window, from the investor and the exporter window, that means the person importing stockfish will not get FX. But at the moment, the person importing stockfish is getting is competing with the person importing petroleum products, diesel, PMS. It's competing.
So this is a matter of the federal government, the need for the federal government to prioritize and bring into play the scale of preference, or something we're taught in economics back then in school. Having the opportunity cost and what should go first and what shouldn't go.
Definitely. So if I'm going to get my FX from the black market to import my stockfish, then the people that can afford it should go ahead and buy it. While the official window will be for things that are critical to the running of the economy. For me, I think that is what we need at this moment, until more rigorous and more import substitution strategies are put in place to ensure that we achieve a little bit of self-sufficiency in some areas and grow our economy to the point where we can also take part in the global value chain and export more to ensure we earn more. If you don't do this, like I told you once, monetary policies and fiscal policies don't work in isolation. They work with hard work. China has done it. Every corner you get to in China, somebody is manufacturing something to sell to the EU, to sell to Australia, to sell to Africa. That way, they attract more FX to their country. So if we need to get our hands dirty as a country, we need to improve productivity. Our GDP per capita is one of the lowest in the world for an economy as big as Nigeria. So if we work the population, get people to produce more, get people to rely on product made in Nigeria and export even to within the AU, or take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Zone Agreement and export more, we'll make money, we'll attract FX, and we can grow the economy that way. Because with or without getting our hands dirty, no monetary policy or fiscal policy will work.
Well, of course, it is a belief shared by Nigerians that we need to get our hands dirty. And I know that from your observations of the community, you know that lots of Nigerians are entrepreneurs. Starting from Akwa Ibom State, you have a lot of young people who are going into different, entrepreneurial ventures of producing things that are capable of being exporting outside the shores of the country. But there's always been that challenge of standardization, that challenge of accessing funds, that challenge of government policies and support on the part of government. So just before we let you go this morning, how would you advise, because we know that I think just recently the Nigerian Export Promotion Council is beginning to go on massive awareness to ensure that states and individuals across board and the federal government is made to understand the need to prioritize export if we are to stabilize as an economy. So what would be your advice to the government, both at the state and the federal level, of course, to Nigerians who are venturing into different entrepreneurial activities?
Okay, my advice would be we should focus on import substitution first. When we focus on import substitution, then we can later move into the areas of what of exportation. This is not a sprint. This is a process. We look at the things we import and look at the things we can produce in Nigeria and empower our young people who are into production. To focus on these areas and produce for the Nigerian market and encourage Nigerians to buy. Incentivize Nigerians to buy local. And for these entrepreneurs going into business, we need as much as possible, the state government and the federal government must have a strategic handshake in providing capital for them. The Niger Microfinance Bank is a very brilliant idea from the federal government and CBN. However, a lot of people who took some of these facilities were not actually into any form of business. They thought these funds were just for were windfalls that they could just spend. So we need to look at creating more of the national microfinance banks, both at the federal and the state levels, and also implement the global standing instruction to ensure that, look, if you're an entrepreneur, you have a brilliant idea, you've already started, you need working capital, we'll fund you. However, we will find you. Your BVN, at this point is locked. You can only operate your NISA microfinance bank account. And if you try to, if you misuse the money, yes, the system can track your funds in other banks and will take our money en bloc. You see, there are a lot of young Nigerians that are doing beautiful business. I know of a young lady producing creams, but she doesn't even have the working capital of 200,000 to produce creams. Now, if she gets a working capital of 300,000, and NAFDAC trains her on the do's and don'ts of cream making, please don't use this chemical, use this chemical and produce, and she produces something world class. She can sell to us in Nigeria. Then there's no need for us to import foreign soaps, foreign creams, and foreign perfumes. For now, we'll use them. And if we empower 15 of that young lady per cluster for each product, Nigeria in the next 3 to 4 years, we will have been able to locally substitute a lot of the products we import. Then subsequently, some of these businesses, when they grow to a point, they buy each other out, they become big, they increase capacity, then they can approach a commercial bank for a larger working capital and begin to look at exporting their products to Benin Republic, Togo, Cameroon. And after a while, they begin to look at importing into the EU when they are of full standard. So it is not really a sprint, it's about import substitution first. Let's achieve self-sufficiency for the majority of the things we import. And with that, we'll be able to reduce the pressure on FX leaving the country. And we should also know that Nigeria has a lot of loans to settle. So the pressure on the FX, and these loans will be settled in USD. We need to do oil and gas. So I think for me, if we are to have a form of subsidies, it should be subsidies in the areas of petroleum importation to ensure that since we don't have power, a lot of this business will still run on diesel. We could have some level of subsidies in that region to grow our economy, while we don't subsidize the taste of Nigerians in stockfish and some other frivolities that we can actually live without. That's my take.
All right, thank you so much, Abel. We truly appreciate you taking out the time. We do hope the federal government of Nigeria, the government at the state level, particularly here in Akwa Ibom State, our primary constituents, take into consideration and adopt some of the very well thought out solutions that you have suggested this morning. But thank you for joining us, and do have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, self-sustenance and being able to produce what we consume in Nigeria, and the campaign for consumption of made-in-Nigerian goods is what has been posited by our guest this morning, Abel Udi, a chartered accountant, of course, a banker, a very well thought-out plans, and of course, solutions that are being made for the Nigerian government at the state and federal level. Of course, an advice to entrepreneurs. I mean, just recently, last week, within the course of celebrating Akwa Ibom at 36, we saw Akwa Ibom State government rolling out Made in Akwa Ibom Trade Fair. Of course, the governor announced about 250 million at that event to help sponsor entrepreneurial training. And of course, we were told about 50 million will be given at 500,000 naira each to the entrepreneurs upon their graduation to help fund their startup business. That is a step that has been widely commended. But of course, the consensus has always been, just like our guests pointed, the Nestle Microfinance Bank, which we've had conversations, was a very great policy for agriculture and other input entrepreneurs. But as often the case is that these funds by the federal government and relevant agencies does not get into the hands of the actual farmers, the actual entrepreneurs, the actual business people. And as such, the aims and objectives is defeated long before it even started. But that's as much we can take on our interview session. We'll head out to Delhi Sports Lights, where we'll be taking you around the front pages of the national dailies. Of course, in Delhi Spotlight, we're starting with the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, you see the kicker there says Tinubu's CSU certificate saga, reputation of Nigeria at stake, Atiku Abubakar. That story is on page 19 of the Nigerian Tribune, and a lot of writers to that particular kicker says Fawahimi inspired us on this journey. He started this 23 years ago. I did not stab Tinubu in the back. Kwankwaso Obi should join me in the campaign to enshrine probity. Whatever Supreme Court says, I will take. Atiku's lawyer. We were told Tinubu forged certificate presented to INEC. CSU admission application form claims that Tinubu attended Government College Lagos, graduated in 1970, but school was established in 1974. APC to Atiku, CSU validated Tinubu certificate, difference in data certificate, human error. Interesting conversations, interesting twists and serious concerns on the part of Nigerian over the certificate saga of the #1 citizen, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. The story is on page 19. Of course, still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, we see impeachment disregard request from Ondo Assembly at Deboruwa, writes Ondo CJ. It's contempt of court. That's the writer to that story, and the story is on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune. Still on the front page of Nigerian Tribune, we see ensure local government areas get allocations directly, not through governors. Afe Babalola tells Tinubu. That story is on page 12. Talking about local government autonomy and transparency in the distribution of allocation, which accrues to the local government. Very serious conversations that have been ongoing for a while now. Still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, we see sex scandal, why we arrested suspended Unicol professor DSS. That story is on page 26. Well, we're still yet not over with the protest that happened in the University of Calabar over sex for grade and the abuse of female students by lecturers in the university, which led to the female student protesting with different inscription. Still a development that will keep you updated. Still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, we see Supreme Court slates December 15 to determine Nnamdi Kanu's fate. That story is on page 5. And before we wrap it up, Ifo-Orolu communal conflict. 8 feared killed, 4 policemen shot, houses burned. Ogun government takes over dispute lands. That story is on page 27 of the Nigerian Tribune. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Our next step is the front page of the Nation newspaper. And of course, on the front page of the Nation, the kicker there says APC Atiku Bika over Tinubu's CSU certificate. I'm filing fresh evidence at Supreme Court. Ex-VP chasing shadows, says President's Chicago lawyer. Of course, we'll also see on the front page of the Nation this morning, Atiku's frantic hunt for after discovered evidence. Okay, that's still on the front page of the Nation. Page 5, or page 6 rather, has that story. Senate summons service chiefs over rising insecurity. That's on page 28 of the Nation newspaper. School curricula now to embrace infotech. President extols teachers. That's on page 30 of the Nation newspaper. Still on the front page of the Nation, 2 billion palliative cash for Osun still unspent, says governor. That story is on page 27. Tribunal upholds Kebbi Governor Idris' victory. Page 6 has the story. 8 killed in Osun communal clash. That is on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Supreme Court to rule on Kanu December 15. 220 million mobile lines active, says NCC. 220 million mobile lines active, NCC. Those stories are on page 6 and page 7, respectively, on the front page of the Nation newspaper. Well, our next stop this morning is Daily Trust, and Daily Trust's kicker there on the front page says Tinubu's certificate. Join me to unearth truth. Atiku tells Obi Kwankwaso. The writers there says accept defeat, lick your wound. APC tells ex-VP. CSU is Atiku's case. I am at Supreme Court on my own. Obi. NNPP Mom. Buhari's government revoked my contract. Shared to cronies. Atiku. That's on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Still on the front page of Daily Trust, World Teachers Day. Fulfill your promises to us. Teachers tell federal government 3 years after. That's on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Of course, we also see body of missing Plateau Fulani leader found. That's on page 35. Osun government orders shoot at sight as 5 fear dead in communal clash. That's on page 35 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Premarital medical screening law underway. Kanu Hisba. That's on page 28. Twist in Rivers APC crisis as factions bicker over Amechi's directives to back Atiku. That story is on page 12. Senate seeks special security operations in Northwest. That story is on page number 5. And of course, tears as Jigawa Elders Forum's chairman Bafa is buried in Kano State. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. And we move over to the front page of Daily Times this morning. The kicker on Daily Times front page has Atiku goes for broke against Tinubu. Atiku goes for broke against Tinubu. We also see the Rider Day presidency send governor's delegation to beg me. He alleges how I saved Tinubu's political career from Obasanjo. APC mocks Atiku, says he has no case. Rallies Obi Kwankwaso youths Nigerians to stand up for truth, morality in governance. All of that you can find on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper. Still on the front page of Daily Times, we see federal government to leave non-oil sector with 75 billion naira investment. On the front page of Daily Times, still we have government seizes disputed ocean land, deploys soldiers. Freedom for Nnamdi Kanu, Supreme Court decides 15 December. That story is on page 5. Of course, stop causing trouble in APC. Ganduje warns Wike-led group. That story is on page 2. National Social Investment Program boss passes Senate screening. That story is on page 2. South stakeholders applaud Tinubu Akpabio over NDDC board. That story is on page 5. And those are the major stories on the front page of Daily Times this morning. That takes us to very last paper this morning. Talking about the Punch newspaper. On the front page of Punch, the kicker there says, Chicago Raycut, Tinubu betrayed me. I will fight till Supreme Court verdict. Atiku. That story is on page 2 and 3 of the Vanguard of the Punch newspaper, rather. Of course, we also see the kicker there. Tinubu supported Yaradua PDP in 2007 presidential election, says ex-vice president. Atiku's political career has ended. He got nothing from Chicago Varsity, APC. Of course, still on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, NUT demands more reforms, teachers to on-the-go internship. That story is on page number 12 and 22 of the Punch newspaper. Manufacturers experiencing toughest period in history. That's according to Man. Page 11 has that story. Depots deserted as petrol landing cost hits 720 naira per litre. Page 17 has that story. Work Ministry seeks 217 billion naira to repair 260 roads. That story is on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. Of course, we also see Tinubu approved 25,000 naira monthly grant for vulnerable pensioners. That story is on page 17. And of course, we've seen a picture story of flood along Abeokuta Highway. Lagos Abeokuta Highway remains a death trap. Motorists lament over flood issues. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. Well, one story is conspicuously on the front page of all the newspaper this morning of the national dailies, and that happens to be the crisis, the certificate case between Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, and President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, and the bickering between the president, the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, and the APC. Of course, the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has distanced himself from the call by Atiku for him and Rabiu Kwankwaso of the NNPP to join forces with him to actually, unearth what he calls the truth. Of course, we are traced back to Fahimi 25 years ago when he first alleged in 2007 thereabout that Ahmed Bola Tinubu's certificate, as at the time he was contesting for the Lagos State governorship election, was false and fake. These are concerns and developments happening, and we'll wait to see what the court verdict is going to be at the end of the day. But a plethora of stories that you can read up for yourself, and this is where we're going to place a pause on a conversation on today's edition of Rise and Shine. I'd like to appreciate you for being part of the conversations and growing our online community. Let's continue to do these on a day-to-day basis, and let's always remember that whatever we do on a personal basis is also carried on as a representation of the generality of Nigerians. So within your small office, ensure that you do due diligence, ensure that everything about you goes in line with the right morality and ethics of whatever profession you find yourself. And let's continue to do our own part of contributing a quarter to building a better, safer, and more secure society. Of course, we appeal to the human in us to always remember that each other will always be needed at the end of the day, and thus we owe it to ourselves and to each other to offer a helping hand in situations of help. Don't forget the NIMET warning that over 19 states, including Akwa Ibom State, will be experiencing heavy, consistent downpour for over 3 days, and of course strong winds. And so if you're within the coastal communities, please take proactive measures to avert the possible disaster that might come as a result of flood. My name is Francis Oyima Edet. Thank you for joining us, and of course, until I come your way tomorrow, do enjoy the rest of our programming. From me to you is bye-bye.